Episode 21. I'm a Monster. Although Quinn had no idea what was happening, just from looking at Peter's face he could tell it was serious. Quinn then looked behind to see Layla lying there still sleeping away. It was important for Quinn to be there when Layla woke up. He had to convince her to not tell anyone her secret, but right now it seemed like Vorden was in trouble. Quinn then thought back to the incident at the canteen. When Quinn was in trouble, Vorden stepped up to help him. Although there probably wasn't much Quinn could do to help, he wouldn't know if he didn't try. What kind of person would he be if he couldn't help Vorden now? "All right, come on," Quinn said. "Let's hurry." The two of them quickly ran through the hallways until they had finally reached the assembly hall. It was currently a large empty hall with marble flooring and a stage at the front. It hadn't been used for anything yet so far, but it was the area where the students would be called if they were to have a meeting. When the two of them entered the assembly hall, there were already multiple students there mumbling about a commotion. "Did you see what happened?" "Yeah, that guy's a monster. How could he do that?" "Luckily, the second-year students were here to stop him." The assembly hall was completely trashed. Craters and rubble had formed on parts of the walls and ground. Burn marks and other things were there as well, and there was even blood. Something Quinn could smell the second he had entered the room. "What happened here?" Quinn asked. "Where's Vorden?" Clearly, a fight had taken place here, and Quinn feared the worst. "I don't know," Peter replied. "Me and Vorden were busy messing around, practicing my Earth ability together. That's when a bunch of second-years I'd never seen before came up to us asking for Vorden. Vorden told me not to worry, but of course I'm so worried, so I followed them. That's when I saw them take him to the assembly hall, but two of the students stood guard and wouldn't let me come inside. I didn't know what to do, so that's when I came looking for you." Quinn and Peter then went around asking the students what happened, but when they did, the students seemed to avoid the question or completely ignore them, as if they were told not to tell anyone what they had seen. While Peter continued to ask the students that were still in the hall about what happened, Quinn already knew that they wouldn't give him any more answers, so he started to do some inspecting of his own. The smell of iron in the room was thicker than anything else to Quinn, and it led him to an area where dried up could be seen on the floor. "Inspect. Name, Vorden Blade. Race, human. Blood type, O negative." Quinn started to inspect the battle scene and found more traces of blood, but when he used the inspect skill on them, it wouldn't show him any information at all. It would only show a bunch of question marks. "Do I have to use the inspection skill on them in person?" Quinn thought. It was a shame the blood on the floor had already dried up, otherwise Quinn would have used the syringe he had on hand. Just then, Peter had finished questioning everyone and returned to Quinn. "It doesn't look like anyone wants to talk," Peter said. "Figures. Let's just head back to our dorm. Who knows, he might have returned." The two of them then headed back to the dorm room together, and when they entered, they were surprised to actually see Vorden already there. However, something wasn't right. Vorden wasn't his regular self. Just by looking at him, Quinn and Peter could tell he had been in a rough fight. Bruises and scuff marks everywhere, large cuts on his back. He looked like he had been in a tough battle. Not only that, but Vorden didn't even greet them when the two entered. The Vorden they had come to know was not the same Vorden right now. Vorden just stayed there lying down on his bed. "Vorden, what happened? Is everything all right?" Peter asked. "Yeah, just leave me be. I'll be fine," Vorden said. "If you stay near me, you will just get hurt anyway." "What are you talking about, Vorden?" Peter shouted. "Look at you! You have to go to the doctor's office! Come on, let's go!" "Just leave me alone, please," Vorden said quietly. "Quinn, come on, say something! He needs to go to the doctor's office, right?" But as Peter turned around to seek support from Quinn, Quinn was nowhere to be seen. "Even he thinks I'm a monster," Vorden mumbled to himself. Just outside the dorm room, Quinn was leaning up against the door, panting hard and sweating. Although he had no reaction when looking at people anymore, it was different when he saw Vorden. Vorden still had fresh cut marks all over his body, and the smell coming off him was strong. Suddenly, Quinn felt like he had a craving for a little bit of blood. It was something he could control. It wasn't like the last time where his body had taken over, but it had brought back bad memories for him, and he was a little afraid of what might have happened. "I really need to find out what's going on with this strange system ability I have." Then a thought came into his head. There was a pending problem that he still hadn't dealt with. Although Vorden was acting strange right now, Quinn knew he was safe. Whatever problems Vorden were dealing with now would just have to wait. Every second wasted meant there was a chance for Layla to wake up, and who knew what would happen when she did. Just then, at the same time in the doctor's office, in the corner at the back of the room, Layla slowly started to open her eyes. "Huh? What happened?" Layla said. "Where am I?" As Layla looked around the room, she started to rub her neck, and at the same time images had flashed through her head of what had happened at the library. She remembered everything. Episode 22. Layla's Request. When images of what had happened to Layla started flashing through her head, she immediately started to get this tingling feeling over her body. She was reacting to the memories of Quinn biting into her. It wasn't a painful memory, but quite an addictive feeling. The sensation of the blood rushing through her body, her face was starting to turn a little red just thinking about it. That's when she lifted her hand and placed it on her neck. "Huh? I can't feel anything." "Oh, so you're awake," Haley said with a smile. "You were sleeping so peacefully there, I didn't know when you were going to wake up." "How did I get here?" Layla asked. "Oh, a boy came in and dropped you off. He said he was your friend. I can't remember his name, but he had short, black, curly hair," Haley said with a smile, thinking about the two of them. This confirmed Layla's thought. Quinn must have brought her here right after biting her. Haley then noticed that Layla was rubbing the side of her neck with her hand. "Oh, I got rid of those 2 marks for you. Do you remember what happened?" Once again, as she thought back to the memory of Quinn biting her, she started to get goosebumps all over her body. "I'm not sure. Maybe it was a beast?" Layla replied. "A beast?" "Yeah, I hear sometimes a stray can come out with the students while they're training through the portals," Layla said nervously, hoping that Haley would believe her lie. "Well, whatever it was, I'm sure someone else will deal with it. It's just a good thing you're safe now." Quinn was running through the school halls as fast as he could. He needed to make it to the doctor's office before Layla woke up. He had no idea how Layla would react. Not only that, but what were the consequences of biting someone? If it was like some of the vampire novels Quinn had read in the library, some vampires had the ability to turn others. Right now, Quinn thought that might be a better situation than everyone finding out about his ability. Finally, Quinn had reached the doctor's office, and he pulled the door wide open. "Oh, hello again," Haley said. "If you're looking for the girl, you just missed her. She left a little while ago." "Really? Did she happen to say anything?" Quinn asked. Judging by Haley's reaction, it didn't seem like Layla had said anything, but he needed to make sure. "Oh, you mean about the wound? She said that a beast might have attacked her, although I highly doubt that. It looked more like a snake bite, but how did it manage to get into the school and all the way up her neck?" Haley continued to ramble on. She often did this as she was left on her own a lot of the time, being the only doctor stationed at the school. It was a lonely job. "Thanks for letting me know," Quinn said as he closed the door. Why did Layla decide to keep it a secret? Quinn thought. He had basically assaulted the poor girl. Good it'd be that she didn't remember what happened, or maybe she was planning to use blackmail against him. But that didn't make sense. She had nothing to gain. Quinn had always thought like this. People, when they did something, always did it for selfish reasons. That's just the way people were. He couldn't believe that Layla would keep this a secret for no reason. Just then, while Quinn was outside the doctor's office, thinking of what to do next, he felt a hand on his shoulder. "You and I, we need to talk," Layla said. Had she been waiting there this whole time? This was bad. Layla clearly indicated that she knew something, which meant losing her memory of the events was unlikely. The two of them then headed to the library where the incident took place. Quinn felt a bit more relaxed. Taking him here meant she wasn't looking for a fight, as there were other students in the room. The two of them sat at a table and activated the orb so only the two of them could be heard. As they looked into each other's eyes for a bit, Quinn started to run multiple scenarios through his head. If worse came to worst, he might have to silence her. "What happened at the library? What did you do?" Layla asked, rubbing her neck. "Why bother asking if you already know what happened?" Quinn asked. "Just tell me what you want." "I don't know if you know this, but I kept an eye on you for longer than you think. After observing you for a while, I came to a conclusion. You're a vampire, aren't you?" Quinn started to laugh nervously, hoping to throw Layla off track. He was actually amazed by how she had come to the conclusion so fast, when it even took him a while. Even if she did see everything he had done so far, he didn't think this was the natural conclusion someone would come to. "And why would you think that?" "I saw you lifting that boy's neck. At the time I thought you doing something else, because I couldn't see clearly," Layla said as her ears started to heat up a little. "But after what you had done to me, it confirms it." Quinn started to sweat slightly at the integration. He wasn't worried about Layla herself, but the troubles she could bring him in the future. Quinn didn't know what to say and thought he would wait for Layla to make her demand. Layla then took a deep breath before saying her next words. This is what Quinn was waiting for, her request. "I want you to hear me out. I want you to make me a vampire." Quinn was so shocked by the words that had come out of Layla's mouth that he nearly fell out of his seat. "What? Do you realize what you are saying right now?" "Please," Layla said as if she was begging him. "It's a childhood dream of mine. This type of thing only happens in books or fairy tales, and now I have the chance for it to happen right now," she said with her eyes lit up. Now Quinn realized why Layla didn't tell anyone. Simply put, this girl was crazy. Episode 23. An Assistant. Layla had grown up her whole life reading fantasy stories and comics about all sorts of things. Before the whole war started, her father used to work as a writer, so her home was filled with books and stories, and her favorite ones were always about vampires. She loved everything about them, how they had to keep their identity secret to the world, the super strength they had, the super speed, and the fact that they could live on nearly forever. When abilities were released to the world, it made fantasy stories a thing of the past. Many people read stories because they were fantasy. It allowed them to imagine doing something that they could never do, but now that humans actually had special powers, what was the point? However, the love for vampires never died down for Layla. It only grew. If abilities are exciting, then that means somewhere out there, maybe vampires did too. When she saw Quinn's actions, she had already convinced herself that he was a vampire. Quinn was right when he thought a normal person wouldn't have come to the same conclusion, but that was because Layla wasn't a normal person. Layla then suddenly got out of her seat and started to bow down to Quinn on her knees. The students in the room, although they couldn't hear their conversations, couldn't help but look at them. "Please, I'll do anything for you," Layla said. "All right, I understand. Please get up," Quinn said. The two of them sat down at their seats again before Quinn started to speak. He let out a big sigh, thinking about how he was going to explain this to her. "It's not what you think," Quinn said. "I'm not a vampire. I became like this from an ability book." Suddenly, the smile on Layla's face disappeared. "You know what that means, right?" Quinn asked. Layla nodded. Quinn was basically telling her it was impossible for him to give her this ability. The reason was that a human body could only activate one ability. When learning an ability, it mutated the genes inside of your body, but once your genes had been mutated, it could no longer change or add a second mutation. Because Layla already had the ability of telekinesis, it meant Layla was unable to learn a second ability. "Then why did you hide this from the academy? Why did you tell them you had no ability? If you got this from an ability book, you can't be an original." "Have you ever heard of an ability like this?" Quinn asked. Layla thought about it for a while and realized there was nothing quite like it. There was never a record of an ability requiring someone to drink blood. "But if you told the school you got it from an ability book, one that's not even been registered, and you aren't an original, you can make a fortune selling the book," Layla said excitedly. "I wish that were true, but I can't do that either," Quinn explained. "When I learnt the ability, the book simply vanished." Layla was debating whether Quinn was telling the truth or not, but she had no choice but to believe him. It was the only explanation of why Quinn was so adamant in hiding his ability. Ability books didn't just vanish. They were books. They could be passed on for others to learn. If people found out about this, multiple companies and the military would put immense pressure on Quinn to share the ability with the world, and with no powerful family backing him, Layla couldn't imagine what would be done to him. They would never believe him if he said he got it from an ability book and it disappeared. Quinn then proceeded to tell Layla about everything that had happened so far, but left out the details about the game-like system, only stating that he continued on as normal when suddenly he had this incurable hunger. Layla felt like it was a mixture of things she had read about vampires before. Quinn didn't die in the sun but felt incredibly weak. She was just as interested to learn more about his vampire-like ability. "Fine, I will keep this as a secret, but only on one condition. I want to help you out," Layla said. "Clearly you don't know much about this thing, so much so that you had gone out of control and bit me in the neck. "We can't have you going around school biting people. They'll take you away in a heartbeat. If you need to feast on someone, then feast on me," Layla said, placing her hand on herself. Quinn started to think about the situation. Having Layla as a helper was a big advantage. Quinn himself wanted to test multiple things about the system, and here he had someone offering to help for free. But it truly felt like Layla was telling the truth. Not only that, but Layla seemed to be more knowledgeable about vampires than himself. Perhaps she would even be able to help him in his research. "It's a deal," Quinn said, as the two of them shook hands. Layla was happy that Quinn had accepted. The truth was, Layla still hadn't given up on the idea of being a vampire. Unlike Quinn, Layla wasn't too sure that what Quinn had was an ability in the first place. An ability was usually a specific set of skills, but Quinn had completely changed, as if he was no longer human. "All right, the first thing is first. You're going to need to take some of my blood," Layla said. "That way, if you're getting hungry again, you can drink some of that." Layla then pulled down her shirt slightly and started to show her neck towards Quinn. "What are you thinking? We can't do it here in front of the library, and I'm not just going to bite into your neck." As the two continued to talk and chat about things in the library about what to do next, Vorden had entered the library and could see Quinn talking to Layla, both chatting and smiling away. "Have you forgotten about me that quickly already?" Vorden said. "You're mine, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you." Episode 24. A School Secret. Peter was currently running around the school looking for Quinn or Vorden. For some reason, both of his new friends had suddenly started acting very strange, and Peter didn't know what to do about it. His life at his previous school had been hell, and he did everything he could to serve those above him. And for the first time ever, he had made friends that protected him. Quinn, even though he was a low level himself, had stood up for Peter and Vorden, who had not only protected him, but helped him learn his new ability. Something had happened to Vorden, and suddenly he was acting strange. Although Peter had no clue what was going on with Quinn, he had some idea about what had changed Vorden. It was after whatever had happened at the assembly hall with the second-year students. But no matter who he would talk to about it, not one person would give him an answer. Some even began to threaten him. That's when Peter could hear a familiar voice. While walking down the hallway, Peter could hear someone speaking, a voice he recognized. As he turned the corner, he saw that it was indeed Vorden. Vorden stood there staring idly at the ground. Peter quickly hid back around the hallway corner. So far, whenever Peter had spotted Vorden, he would just ignore him and walk away without even speaking to him. But now it sounded like Vorden was speaking to someone else. "Would you two calm down?" Vorden said. There was then a brief pause before Vorden spoke again. "I don't care if he hurt the little one's feelings. It's not like Quinn isn't allowed to talk to other people." Again, there was a slight pause. "Look, if you get involved and hurt them, I won't forgive you. I won't let something like last time happen again." The whole time Peter was listening into the conversation, the only voice he could hear was Vorden's, but it was clear that he was speaking to someone. Peter couldn't take it anymore and decided to take a peek, and as he did, still the only person he could see was Vorden. Did the other person leave already? Peter thought. Just then he saw Vorden start to walk off. The bell had rung, indicating that it was the end of their lunch break and it was time to head to afternoon classes. That's when the library doors opened, and Quinn and Layla appeared out walking together. "Quinn!" Peter said as he waved him over. "I'll meet you at the front gate tonight once classes are over," Quinn said to Layla before leaving to join Peter. The two of them then started to walk off to class together. "Hey, are you okay, man?" Peter asked. "I was worried about you when you suddenly bolted out of the room like that." "Yeah, sorry, man. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Otherwise, my underwear would have turned brown." Whoa, too much information," Peter said. "Anyway, I'm glad you're okay. Look, I'm really worried about Vorden. Ever since he came back from that assembly hall, he's been acting strange." Quinn placed his hand on Peter, seeing that he was clearly startled. This whole time, Quinn had more important things to worry about, but now that he had solved the most pressing matter, he had time to focus on other things. "Don't worry, we'll find out what's going on together." When they entered their next class, they could see that Vorden was already in his seat, sitting down, ready even before them. "Oh, hey guys, how are you doing?" Vorden said with a smile. Peter went to sit in his seat to the right of Vorden, while Quinn went to sit in his seat to the left of Vorden. "Hey, are you feeling better?" Peter asked. earlier it seemed like you were kinda sulking." "Yeah, don't worry. I just kinda got thrown around a bit by the second year and it got me pretty down," Vorden replied. "What happened at the assembly hall?" Quinn asked. Vorden's face slightly changed. It was as if he was trying to hold something back. Vorden clenched his fists for a few seconds and finally relaxed his hands. "Guys, don't worry about it too much. You know I'm strong and know I can handle myself." Although Peter was quite satisfied now with Vorden, as he seemed to be his regular self, Quinn noticed that Vorden seemed to be holding something back, almost suppressing something when he asked that question. As other students started to enter the classroom when they saw Vorden, they immediately started to whisper. If Vorden would look back at them, they would turn their head as soon as possible. As the students sat down, the talks continued, and several different words could be heard. Monster, freak, weirdo, crazy, and all these words were being aimed at Vorden. It was as if the whole school was sharing a secret that Peter and Quinn weren't allowed to know, and not even Vorden himself would say what had happened. After hearing these words, Quinn noticed that Vorden stayed there motionless with his head down. He hadn't even written any notes down in his notebook about the lesson. Although it seemed like no one would tell him or Peter what had happened, Quinn now had another ally that might be able to help him, and that was Layla. At the end of the class, the teacher Dell projected a screen in front of the whole class. There was a list of names, each sorted into a different category. "Please look at this carefully and see where your name is, as tomorrow will be the start of your combat classes," Dell explained. The list was split up into several different categories. Each one was different depending on what type of ability you had. Elemental abilities, transformation abilities, enhancement abilities, and so on. That's when Quinn also noticed that his and a few other names were not on the list, including Vorden's. If your name is not on the list, it's because either your ability doesn't fall into one of the categories, or you are an original with a unique ability. You are free to choose to go to whichever class you believe suits you. Students are also able to switch between combat classes if they wish. These are not set in stone, but the school's recommendation based on your ability. The list of available classes was then sent to each student's wristwatch, where they were to register for the type of class they would be interested in. "I wonder what combat class would be best for me," Quinn thought as he looked at the long list. Episode 25, A School Secret. After classes had finished for the day, Vorden had offered to help Peter with his training again, especially since tomorrow the two of them would be in the same combat classes, the Elemental class. "Hey, do you want to come with us?" Peter asked. "Nah, I won't bother you guys. I wouldn't be much help anyway," Quinn replied. Peter was pleased that it seemed like the group had gotten back normal again. There was no tension between the three of them, and Peter wished it would stay that way forever. Just then, when Quinn had left, Vorden and Peter were left in the room. That's when Vorden asked Peter a question. "Hey, have you seen Quinn hanging around with a girl lately?" Vorden asked. "Come to think of it, I saw him exit with a girl at the library. It was the same one who was at the test with us that day, with the bow and arrow." After Peter had given an answer, for a split second, Peter felt like he saw the expression on Vorden's face change. But Quinn blinked and looked again, and Vorden seemed to be fine. "Maybe he's gone and got himself a little girlfriend," said Vorden, laughing. Quinn had, of course, decided to ditch the other two because he had already made plans to meet up with Layla beforehand. The two of them were to meet at the school gate. But before the two of them were to meet, Quinn decided to stop by the science lab. Although most lessons in military school were about combat or how to use technology, science was still a core subject. It was because of scientists that the human race had discovered how to use all the different technologies they had in the world today. So students were encouraged to continue to learn science throughout their service time, in hopes they would continue to in the future. The classrooms were empty for the day, and the important equipment were locked in a storage room. But Quinn wasn't looking for anything too fancy. All he needed was some test tubes and small corks. After searching around the room for a while, he found where they kept the test tubes. He took a total of 5. Even though there were many there, if he took too much it would be suspicious, and Quinn couldn't carry more than 5 without having to worry about them breaking or not. Quinn shoved the 5 test tubes into a messenger bag he was carrying and wrapped them up in a spare shirt he took from his room. Quinn currently had a total of 60 of 200 EXP until his next level up. 50 experience points had carried over from the last quest, and he had received 10 EXP from his 2 daily quests. So far, with each level up, he would gain 1 additional stat point and 5 points of HP. Although Quinn had gotten stronger through this, it wasn't the fastest way for him to improve his strength. Quinn realized the system had offered him the chance to gain an additional stat point 2 times as long as he drank his victim's blood, but when he drank Layla's blood, he still gained a stat point. This was what Quinn wanted to test out today. It was 6 o'clock in the evening and the sun was just starting to set, meaning Quinn wasn't affected by the sun right now. As planned, Layla was standing there waiting for him by the gate with her bow on her back. Students who used weapons could carry it with them around most of the time. There was always the chance of an attack or a beast escaping through a portal. After the 2 of them met, they decided to walk to the nearby park that was in between the convenience store and the school. Then they ventured away from the trail into the woods where they were behind cover. No one ventured in these parts, and it was hard for them to be seen. "So, are we going to do this?" Layla asked excitedly. Quinn still found it weird, then rather than being scared by the whole situation, Layla was excited. "All right, close your eyes," said Quinn. Layla closed her eyes and was ready. She could still remember the satisfying feeling from the last time and couldn't wait to feel it again. Although she was a bit nervous when a thought came to her head that Quinn's lips would be on her neck. Suddenly, though, Layla felt a small prick in her arm. Layla opened her eyes and noticed that a needle was there. "What? You didn't think I was going to bite you, did you?" Layla's cheeks suddenly went bright red. If it wasn't for the needle in her hand, she would have tried kicking Quinn away. Once the syringe had been filled up, Quinn squirted it out into one of the test tubes he brought with him. "Is it okay if I fill another one?" Quinn asked. Layla didn't say anything and held out her arm. She was still a bit embarrassed about what had happened earlier. Once Quinn had filled up 2 test tubes, he put one of the blood-filled tubes in his bag while holding the other. "Inspect. Blood of Layla Monroe. Blood type A positive." Quinn then looked at Layla and used his inspect skill once again. "Name, Layla Monroe. Race, human. Ability, telekinesis. HP, 12 of 12. Blood type A positive." It was as Quinn thought. When using the inspect skill on the blood, it only showed him what blood type it was and who it was from, just like the time at the assembly hall. But if the person was in front of him, it would reveal their ability, HP, and blood type. Some of the blood marks in the hall only revealed question marks, assuming that Quinn either had to have run into the person before or used the inspect skill on the person once before. Quinn looked at the test tube and gulped. He then pulled out the cork at the top and started sniffing the blood. "You're not going to drink it right here, are you?" Layla asked. "Why not? I need to know if it will make any changes." "I don't know, it feels kind of embarrassing, I can't explain." Quinn ignored Layla and looked at the blood again. The fragrance smelled quite sweet, which was different from how he remembered it before. Then suddenly, Quinn lifted the tube and drank the blood in one gulp, as if he was taking an alcoholic shot. As the blood ran down his throat, he felt a warm tingling sensation through his body. The blood was also surprisingly sweet rather than metallic. It seemed like the race change had also changed his taste buds and sense of smell. "Your HP is already full. The blood will have no effect. Blood from this person has already been consumed. No stat points will be given." Quinn was surprised to see at the information he had been given. The blood last time seemed to have a healing effect on his body. Judging by the message, if Quinn was injured, Layla's blood would allow him to regain HP. But the second message is what interested him more. The system stated because he had already consumed this blood before, that no stats would be given. This meant that as long as it was the blood of someone he hadn't drunk before, he would be able to get an extra stat point. Quinn smiled at the thought. Of course, this was only a theory of his, but Quinn wanted to test it out straight away. "I guess whatever you wanted to test outworked, judging by your creepy smile and all," Layla said. "If only there was someone else's blood I could test this on." Just then the sound of 2 people entering the woods from the playground was heard. Quinn and Layla immediately ducked down and hid behind a tree. That's when they saw 2 students starting to walk into the forest. "Now hand over your credits, otherwise I'll dig you your grave right here and no one will ever find your body," a boy's voice said. Quinn immediately recognized the voice. It was Riley. It looked like he still hadn't learned his lesson and was still up to his old tricks. Quinn then went into his bag and took out the mask he had bought at the convenience store. Last time he had let Riley go without taking any of his blood, and now he felt like it was such a waste. But this time, Quinn wouldn't let Riley go. Episode 26, Blood Types. As Quinn put on his mask, he moved in closer to where Riley and the student were, making sure to move in and out between the trees. "Hey, do you want a beating? Pass over the credits now," Riley said, holding up the student against the tree. "But I only get 10 credits a day. They're mine. This isn't fair." "Since when has this world ever been fair? Blame the people at the top for not looking out for us," Riley said. As Quinn heard those words, he realized that Riley was in the same position as him. He was only a level 2 user and was just part of the weak bunch being pushed around by those above, but that didn't mean he could do it to others. That would fix nothing. Layla followed Quinn closely and had taken out her bow and arrow. She knew from last time if Quinn had put on the mask, he was going to act. "Do you want me to help out? It will be easier with the two of us," Layla asked. "It's okay, there's something I wanted to test out," Quinn said. The last time the two of them had fought, Quinn was only a level 1. Now he was a level 2, and he also had obtained a new skill which he wanted to test, and Riley was a great test subject. Quinn started to move closer and closer. He was hoping to finish off Riley in one shot, and this was the perfect chance while his back was turned. Finally, Quinn was just about in striking distance. That's when the student held up against the tree and spotted Quinn. "Please help me!" the student cried. "You idiot!" Quinn shouted as he leapt forward, hoping he could be quick enough to hit Riley before he could activate his ability. The student's warning had given Riley enough time to activate his ability and turn around. However, Quinn's fist was fast, and even though Riley put out his hands to stop the attack, Quinn's fist still managed to hit Riley in the stomach. The impact was just like last time. It was solid and felt like he was punching a wall, but the blow managed to still hurt Riley a bit. The attack was slightly stronger, and this time Quinn's fist hadn't broken. I've been waiting for you," Riley said as he put 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled. Just then, 2 students came running in from the park and into the forest. "You think you can take on 3 of us?" Riley said. Quinn looked at the 2 students running towards them, and that's when an arrow came flying from the woods and hit one of them in the knee, causing the student to instantly fall to the ground. The other students went down to his friend. "What happened?" the student said. Then he noticed an arrow in the student's leg. "Where did this come from?" Quinn saw this as an opportunity and dashed away from Riley and started heading towards the other student. "The skill said 5 meters, right? Well, show me what you got." As soon as Quinn was within 5 meters, he activated his skill Blood Swipe, at the same time swinging his hand across. A red line of power came surging out of Quinn's fingertips and hit the student right on the chest, causing a claw-like mark, but it wasn't enough to knock him out. "Blood Swipe, Blood Swipe, Blood Swipe!" Quinn then cast 3 more blood swipes, swinging his arm out. Each blow managed to hit the student dead on, with multiple marks across his chest. He had finally collapsed to the floor. HP 11 of 15. An opponent has been defeated. 50 EXP granted. 110 of 200 EXP. Blood Swipe had no cooldown, but did use 1 point of HP per swipe. As long as Quinn had HP, he could continuously cast out his Blood Swipe skill. Riley, seeing his 2 teammates who were of equal power level to himself be defeated in an instant, started to feel scared. His body was shaking, and all he wanted to do was get out of there. He turned away from his friends and started running deeper into the forest. Quinn's speed was greater, though, and was easily able to catch up. When his attack was in range, Quinn cast 2 more blood swipes aiming for the back of Riley's ankles. As they hit, Riley fell to the ground. Please don't hurt me, I'll do anything," Riley begged. "Oh, really?" Quinn then placed his watch up against Riley's. "Hand over all your credits." "But if I do, I won't have enough credits for Dan. He'll kill me," Riley said. "Is now really the time to worry about Dan?" Quinn asked. Riley quickly transferred over 50 credits that he had obtained that day over to Quinn. "So, will you let me go now?" Riley asked. Just then, Riley could see a sinister smile appear on Quinn's face through the bottom of his mask. "No," Quinn said. He then went up behind Riley and held him in a choking position. Riley tried activating his hardening skill, but Quinn's strength was still strong enough to get through and eventually caused Riley to pass out. "That's for pushing me around in the canteen." Quinn then looked at Riley's body and noticed that his ankles were bleeding from where he had used the blood swipe skill. Quinn then went to his bag to pull out a test tube and held Riley's leg up, allowing the blood to slowly drip into the test tube until it filled up. Quinn also filled up a second tube for testing later on. Next were the other two students. Layla had dealt with the other when she hit with her arrow earlier, and the other student had passed out from the multiple attacks of blood swipe. Quinn then did the same with the other two students, collecting blood from their open wounds and from where Layla's arrow had managed to pierce the student's leg. After they had finished collecting the blood, it was time for them to get out of there and leave the scene. It was getting late and it was almost curfew time. If the students were out past 10, then the guards would go out looking for you. It seemed like not only did the watches act as a credit device and power level indicator, but it was a tracker as well. Students who were found injured outside the school would be taken to the doctor's office. When the two of them arrived at the school, it was still 9 o'clock, so they had an hour before they needed to head to their dorm rooms. That's when the two of them had decided to head to the school roof instead. It was quiet up there, and no one was around, so the two of them could talk freely. "So what do you need all the blood for?" Layla asked. "You know, if you need some blood, you can just take some of mine any time. I really don't mind." "Thanks, but I just wanted to test something out." "Inspect." Quinn had used his inspect skill on each of the containers. The first was Riley's blood. "Blood type B positive." "Here goes," Quinn said, as he popped the cork open and drank the small tube of blood. "You have regained 5 points of HP, 14 of 15 HP. B-positive blood type has been absorbed. Plus 1 point of agility has been added." Quinn couldn't stop smiling as he saw the message. He then went on to drink the second tube of blood. Drinking the blood no longer bothered him once he found out the taste was quite sweet. All Quinn needed to do was convince himself it was some type of juice. "You have regained 1 point of HP, HP 15 of 15. This person's blood has been consumed before. No extra stats will be given." As Quinn thought, the blood still regained his health, similar to how a potion worked in a game, but once a person's blood had been consumed, it would no longer give him any stat points. Quinn then drank the 2 other test tubes from the other students. "Blood type A negative has been absorbed. Plus 1 strength point has been added. Blood type AB positive has been absorbed. Plus 1 stamina point has been added." Quinn looked at messages he received and started to notice a pattern. When he drank Layla's blood, which was A positive, he had gained a strength point. It was the same when he drank the A negative blood. Riley, whose blood type was B positive, had given him an agility point, and lastly, AB positive had given him a stamina point. Assuming being positive or negative blood type didn't matter so far, A type had given him strength, B gave him agility, and AB stamina. That left one blood group that Quinn hadn't drunk from yet, which was O. Quinn couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he drank the O type.